10.7 million people in the 50 plus age group are financially called the working poor. 62% have household incomes below $50,000. And for more than half the people in the 50 plus age group, the total value of financial assets they have is under $25,000, under $50,000. If they're 65 or older, it's $25,000. So people are not saving and looking ahead to the future. The average retirement age is 63, and the average length of retirement is 18 years. So you have a long time to plan for and when you're putting money aside for your financial future. The total cost for a couple, 65 or older, for medical treatment over a 20-year period is $218,000. So just in medical costs alone, if you don't have adequate insurance, you could be not have enough money put away for savings. .4% of all workers are earning retirement benefits at work. A lot of people think that if they have Social Security coming, that's going to adequately take care of them when they retire. That is a false notion. In order to adequately prepare for the comfortable requirement requires both Social Security, an employer-based retirement plan, personal savings, and investments, so that you have a combination of financial pools to pull from when you're planning your retirement. How much retirement income will you need? Does anybody have an idea how much you need when you retire of your pre-retirement income? How much of that you need when you retire?
Couple $100,000.
Couple percentages. Anybody got a good guess? 70%. 70%? How much? 80% is the right answer. 80% of your pre-employment or retirement income should be put aside for your retirement future. According to the 2015 Career Builder's annual retirement survey, 54% of senior workers 60 plus plan on working, 81% part-time, 19% full-time. So a lot of people, once they retire, are planning to continue working to bring in income for their home. You're going to spend roughly 18 to 20 years in retirement. So it's a long period to plan for. So you need to put money aside to cover you through all of those years, and people are living even longer than that. It's not unusual to see people in their late 90s and 100s living. So you need to plan ahead for at least 18 to 20 years, and in some cases even more than that. For women, they need to, challenges faced by women, it may be more difficult for them to save retirement funds. They tend to earn less than men and work fewer years. They stay at jobs for shorter periods of time, work part-time more often, and interrupt careers to have children. They live 5 years longer than men and need to build a bigger nest egg. They may tend to invest less aggressively than men, have tendency to lose more income following a divorce, and 65 plus age and older, they're more than likely 60% likely than men in that same age group to receive income below the poverty level. So women need to especially be conscious of how they're planning for their future. And I see many of you today you're dominating as the females in the group.
We had this lesson when we were 25 years old, when we were ambitious and we had jobs and nobody told us what to do.
Well, back when you...
Wait, now
it's not too late to start. Putting some aside is better than nothing at all. What happened was when you were in your 20s, most employers offered pension plans. And people had pension to rely on. And now many of those plans have disappeared, and you now have 401ks and 403ks where you have to put money aside each month. So it's a much different world than it was back when you were in your 20s. But you're right, we need to be teaching this at a younger age group. Okay, first handout. All right, when you sit down to do financial planning, this gives you a list of the type of documents that you should have available to you to most accurately plan your financial future. Any retirement planning documents and statements. Many retirement programs send out a quarterly statement on what your value of your portfolio is. IRA accounts, any retirement benefits from a former spouse or from current spouse, annuity policies, and Social Security retirement benefits estimate. And you can go on Social Security's website, and they have a calculator that you can figure out approximately what you're going to get in income from Social Security when you retire. Tax planning documents, your last year's income tax statement, and a recent pay stub with cumulative year-to-date information on it about what you're earning. Any financial documents and statements. These would include investment-related documents, any bank accounts, mutual funds, brokerage accounts, stocks, partnership or other business agreements, or any other type of investment-related information you have. Any loan documents, student loans, mortgages, car, credit cards, and a copy of your most recent credit report. And then insurance documents and statements. Health, disability, and long-term care insurance policies, homeowners, renters, and any other insurance policies you have. Life insurance policies, and some of you may have long-term care policies, any of those types of insurance policies. So this is the kind of information you're going to need to have accessible to you when you begin to sit down and plan your financial future and start putting things together. Okay, it'll make it a lot easier. Whoop. Now, spending diary. In your packet, there is a sheet for 2 weeks of spending. It looks like this. There's week 1 and week 2. One of the best ways to figure out what you're spending each month on things like coffee and donuts and insurance and everything is to do a diary and record every single cent you spend for 1 or 2 weeks or even 4 weeks. If you could do it for a month or even for a quarter, because sometimes payments come on a quarterly basis. So this is it takes a lot of time to fill one of these out, and it takes really being conscious about putting down everything you spend. But it's the only way you can get an accurate picture of how much you're spending each month on various essentials that you need in your life. And unless you have accurate information, you're not going to be able to plan accurately for your future. Many people don't realize how much they're spending, like getting coffee every day and how that adds up, or getting gas for the car, how much that costs on a monthly basis, or some of those other kinds of expenses that we just take for granted and don't have in our mind when we're sitting down to do financial planning. Okay? All right, I'm going to hand out a financial assessment. I'll take this side. As you get this, if you'd start filling it out, this is going to give you a chance to assess where you're at as far as planning for your financial future. So I'd like you to take you'll have about 10 minutes to complete this and go through each of these items on here to look at where you're at as far as financial planning for your future. Is everybody finished, or do you need a few more minutes? Hello, do you need a few more minutes, or are you all set? You're all set? Okay. What did you find interesting or surprising about filling this out, this assessment?
I think that you are normally a normal person, normal happenings in your life. But when something unexpected happens to your mate at an early age, you know, this goes right by the door. You can't expect something like that to happen, and that takes away quite a few years from your time.
Yeah.
So this is
Okay. It can be really difficult when a spouse dies or you divorce or whatever, and you no longer have that income coming in. It's especially difficult if that spouse has been handling the financial planning for the family, and you're not aware of what was going on in the financial planning, and then suddenly you're stuck with checking the checkbook or taking care of the retirement accounts or whatever. It can be very unsettling. What other things did you find surprising or interesting? Hello, what else did you find interesting or surprising about it?
I'm in worse shape than I thought.
You're in worse shape than you are, okay. And in that you haven't done the planning, you mean, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm surprised how old I am already.
Yes?
It's hard to save money nowadays.
Yes, it is hard to save money. You have to really be very disciplined in having an emergency account set aside for emergencies and for the car getting hit or whatever, having a fund aside. They recommend that people have an emergency fund of 6 to 8 months of living income that you would need to live on for 6 to 8 months in case of an emergency. That's what they recommend that you have put aside in a special fund that you don't touch, and that you put money into it on a regular basis until you get it up to the point where you want it. All right, these 3 sections correspond to the program I'll be offering in June. The first section looks at where are you now, where do you want to go, and how do you get there. And this is looking at financial planning, budgeting, net worth, some of the information that you need to begin to start planning for your financial future. If you have a lot of falses, this would be a good place for you to start, because that means you haven't done some of those kinds of things that you need to do in planning for your future. The second section looks at taking control of credit card and debt, and also looking at your credit report, getting that on a regular basis, and understanding what your credit card fees are, and paying off your credit cards if you have a balance on them. And then the third section looks at putting money away in the savings accounts and actually saving. Even if you have very little money coming in, you can still be putting money aside in the savings account. And that's very important. Even if it's only a few dollars a week, at least you're putting some money aside. I put $5 a week in a little piggy bank, and that's my vacation fund. And it's amazing over a year's time how much money accumulates in that jug if I'm faithful in putting the money in each week, and just $5. And I get enough to go on vacation each year. So it's you can save if you put your mind to it. And it has to become a priority. It has to become one of your bills every month, savings. Becomes one of your bills, and you pay it regularly like you would the car payment or the mortgage or whatever. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay. In your packet, there is a financial interdependency quiz. It looks like this. It's in your materials. Would you take a few minutes and fill that out? Okay, what this inventory does is get you to look at how much money are you spending out to help family. And again, this is a loan to your grandson, or you suddenly are raising your grandchildren, or you have a parent that you're taking care of. Any of those kinds of things can have an impact on your budget and make it very difficult for you to replan or have money enough for your retirement. For example, my father is ill right now, and I've been going extra trips up to Montague to help my mother and whatever, and I'm using an extra tank of gas every week. And with gas expense, it's $30 extra in my budget each week. So you need to start calculating those kinds of expenses as you're caring for either parents or children, grandchildren, or your own children. And starting to put money aside for you and saying you can't help them. It's very hard for families, particularly the grandparents, to say no to their kids and grandkids. But if you're neglecting your own savings and your own planning for your retirement, you need to look at that. Because you're not going to help yourself if you're helping your grandkids and not taking care of yourself for when you retire. Any comments about that?
Well, I think one thing is that that's not been touched on. I have several pets, and they can be expensive. Right now, I've gone through quite a bit with one of my dogs.
Yep.
So, this isn't touched on.
That would be things that you would include in your budget when you're setting up your budget, is an animal. I have a cat who now has asthma and heart problems. Luckily, I have pet insurance, so that's helping. But still, that's an additional expense, and the insurance doesn't cover everything. So that is an additional expense that you've got to calculate into your budget. People have said to me, "Get a second cat," and I say no, because I can't afford a second cat. Because you have to start thinking about the doctor, the vets, and food every week, and if they need have medical problems and they need attention, those can all add up really quickly. Any other comments? Okay. What I'd like you to do is take a few moments to think about what matters most to you. Whatever it is that you hold dear, write down what it is and why it's important to you. And then the second part is, how would you improve your financial situation benefit what matters? Why would improving your financial situation benefit what matters most to you? So take a few minutes to think about those and write responses to both those questions. Okay, you're now getting a goal-setting action plan. And from these things that are important to you, for example, one of my goals is to go to Italy to see where my grandparents came from. All right, so I need to start planning for that and putting money aside to be able to do that. And on the goal setting sheet there's 3 sections. One is setting up your overall financial goal, looking at credit and debit, and looking at savings goal. What I'd like you to do is take a few minutes, I'll give you about 15 minutes to work on this, to set up your overall financial goal, what things you need to do to achieve it this week, this month, this year. Do the credit and debit goal if you have a lot of debt, and then do the same thing with savings goals. So take a few minutes and fill this form out, please. What did you find interesting, surprising, or challenging about this exercise as you're setting down financial goals for yourself? Either an overall financial goal, or your debt, or for savings.
How well I could do with what little I have.
Okay, that's very good. That's a nice thing to find out. What else?
That you have to be healthy and eat well, exercise, and always keep smiling.
It's a nice positive attitude to have. How about some of the rest of you? Any comments?
I don't use budget, I just pay them. Money comes in and money goes out, so I don't go by a budget.
All right, and when you don't go by a budget, you spend a lot more money than you do when you're going by a budget, and that gives you money to put aside for savings. Yeah, and many of us are not using budgets. Money comes in and money goes out, and we don't know where it's coming from and where it's going, and that's why it's important to do the diary and keep track for a couple of weeks at least where all your money's going each week. Because I'm sure you'll find some surprising factors when you're going to set up your budgets and so forth, where money is going every week. I think it's really important that you know where your money's going and what bills you're paying, and that you're putting money aside for savings.
Yes, I have a list, and every month when I get my Social Security check, I put so much money in each envelope, so I know at the end of the month or at the end of the year, I need to pay my taxes and I need to pay my bills. At least I will have that money in those envelopes, so when I get my bill, pay it.
And that's a very good method to have, is to have envelopes set aside for each of your bills and put the money in as you get your Social Security or whatever your income is for that month, and putting the money aside, and when it's gone, it's gone. And that's really good, especially for money that you're using for odds and ends and types of things. It's good to say, I'm going to use $30 a month for coffee or donuts or whatever, and when that money's gone, it's gone. And then keep yourself on a budget. It's really important that you be on a budget. Linda?
Marcia, do you see in the job that you hold, do you see a lot of people trying to get ahead by using credit cards or multiple credit cards?
Yes. Yes. And
A lot of trouble?
yes, because it adds up really quickly on a credit card. And when you're using it, particularly if you're using it to pay everyday expenses, it's going to get you eventually into a hole, because you've got credit cards that you're making so much money each month on the payment, plus you've got your regular bills to pay each month. So it's really important, if you can, to pay off your credit cards each month and not get a ongoing balance in your credit card, because that can get you into major, major trouble.
How about bankruptcy? Have you seen an increase in bankruptcy amongst people, older people?
I haven't had as much experience with that, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's been more among older people. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Did writing down your financial goals and the steps you might take to achieve them make them seem more attainable? You're shaking your head up there. Would you like to say anything more?
I think just seeing it in writing and putting down some steps of things you can do. Like one thing that I put down is not do window shopping and like stay out of the mall. Even the grocery stores. You know, you walk down the aisle. If you go without a list, I go without a list, and if I go hungry, forget it. I want this, I want that, then I get home and sometimes I don't even eat this stuff.
Yeah.
I just like it, looking at it. So I really try to control that. CVS is another danger zone for me. I like all of this stuff. I put that unhealthy. So I try to limit myself. And I'm pretty good actually about budgeting, and I always have
And that brings up a good point of you go into a store without a plan and without a list, and havoc is going to reign. I can guarantee it, because as you say, you're going to buy things that you were not intending to buy and that you don't need, and you're buying them anyways because they look good or on sale or whatever. And I think for many of you, like my parents who grew up in the Depression, I know my mother keeps stockpiles of food in her cupboards. She's got enough food there for the next who knows how many years. And it's that because you lived through the Depression. And it's learning how to cut back on that and keep what you need and not have 4 or 5 of the same thing, because you might run out. And I think that's very important for your generation to be looking at, those of you who grew up in the Depression.
But I have a comment on that. Isn't it better to say, this is what I do. I look for the sales because I get free newspapers. So I look for the sales. So say paper towels have a great sale, okay? So I'll go to the store and I'll buy 2 of them. And then I only need 1. But then I know that I'm set in case next month, if something should happen, I have a little extra because I had the money and I bought it when it was less money. So like all over my apartment, I have a little stockpile of this and that I really need, that I need, toilet paper and all.
Yeah, things you're going to use on a regular basis, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense to stock up. I do the same thing.
Okay.
And stock up on.
Say I'm nutty to do that.
No.
Look at all this toothpaste.
Well, you get, like, I got a stockpile of detergent in my cupboard, but it was on sale for $9.99, and plus I had coupons, so I got it for $8, and I'm not going to see those sales again. So I got a stockpile of laundry detergent that's going to last me for a while.
Yes, and you don't have to worry about shopping for it, so it keeps you out of the stores. Okay, then I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's important to, if you find a good sale on things, to take advantage of it. And as you say, buy a second one to have on hand, because particularly if it's a really good deal. And if you look hard and low and high, you can find some really good deals. All right, any other comments on the goal setting? Yes?
Yeah, if I will stick to your goal, planning ahead and making your list. And then also to prioritize. You don't have enough money for everything, pay off the higher interest bills or whatever.
Right.
Prioritize where your money is going.
Yes, that's important, to set up a priority. People say to me, which is the best thing to do, to pay off the highest credit card figure or the credit card with the lowest money on it? And that's really your own personal choice. Some people like paying the one with the least amount of money because then they feel a sense of accomplishment when they get that paid off. Others like to start with the higher one and get that out of the way and then work on the lower ones. It really depends on your own approach towards bill paying. And it can vary depending on different circumstances.
And I like that when it says to make your savings part of your expenses. So that money's there.
Yeah, you make savings as one of your regular expenses. That's the best way. And I found that the best way to do it is have it taken out of my check before I even see it. Because then it goes right into savings, and then I don't even see it, so I can't spend it. In your materials, one of the things that you get points on is to meet with a accredited financial planner. And I wanted to make you aware, most banks now have a financial planning section in their bank. And whoever your bank is, you can go to them and get free assistance in setting up a plan and what to do with your money and stuff. And that's one way to get financial. I know Florence Savings Bank, where I go, I've worked with Jean Kelly. She's excellent and really will help you in making plans. So that's another option, is to look at the financial planning units in your banks, wherever you have your bank accounts. Okay? All right, we're going to talk about scams. Financial exploitation is the fraudulent or otherwise illegal, unauthorized, or improper actions by a caregiver, fiduciary, or other individual in which the resources of an older person are used for another person for personal profit or gain, or actions that result in depriving an older person of the benefits, resources, belongings, or assets to which they are entitled. This is a big thing among elderly, and it's really important that you be alert to this. My mother is very financially savvy. She got roped in almost by somebody calling and saying her grandson was in trouble. And she called the bank, and thank goodness the banker said, wait a minute, call your grandson first. But she said it was my grandson. What was I going to do? He was desperate. And my mother is financially savvy and knows what's going on. So you can easily be dragged in by these guys. They know what they're doing. They're professional. And they can rope you in, and they're carrying all sorts of scams these days. So it's really important to be alert to that. And one of the reasons they may be targeting you, if you particularly have assets like a home or have equity in your home, have large savings accounts, they're going to tag you. And once you get into their loop, they're going to keep calling you again and again and again and again. So it's really important that they call, hang up on them. And never, never, never give important account information, your social security number, or any of that information over the phone unless you've initiated the call and you know who you're talking to. Because most social security people, IRS and so forth, will not call and ask you that kind of information over the phone. They will usually send you a letter. So it's really important that you not give out that information unless you absolutely positively know who you're talking to. And that's a really important point to make for you. All right, who are the abusers? Who is the prime abuser of elders? The children and people that know them. 70%, I asked our director of protective services, 70% of elders are victimized by their family members. Approximately 70 or higher percent of people. Scams, there are very few that are that's a very lower priority than being scammed by family members or people that the person knows. So it's really important that you be aware of that. You know, when Johnny and his girlfriend and the baby move in and they're not contributing to the upkeep of the home and paying bills, you're being exploited. And it's really important that that get reported and that you get the help to get that situation taken care of. Okay? Why don't people report financial exploitation? One of the main reasons is shame and embarrassment. People feel ashamed that they got hooked, they got drawn in by somebody, they become embarrassed and they don't report it. And it's really important to try to overcome that sense of shame. People get caught into these scams. These guys are professionals, they know what they're doing. And you should not feel bad that you got caught in. And the important thing is to report it so that somebody else doesn't get caught into it. You would report it either to protective services or to the district attorney's office or the police department. Primarily your police department make a police report, and then they would take it from there. The second reason is loyalty. The reluctance to turn in a family member or somebody you know. You don't want to hurt their feelings, you don't want to get them in trouble, but if they're taking advantage of you, you need to get that taken care of. Fear of retaliation. If you're dependent on this person that's abusing you for your care, or you're unable to acknowledge that financial exploitation is taking place, you're not going to report it. So it's really important that you know that you're not going to lose your services if your caregiver is taking advantage of you. If you report it, they'll give you a new caregiver and give you the care that you need. Dependence. Again, this kind of ties in with the fear of retaliation. You rely on that person for care, and you don't want to turn them in. Denial. You're not acknowledging that you've been financially exploited. You're living in kind of fantasy land that everything's hunky-dory when it's not. And most people know kind of in the back of their mind that something's not right, and they need to act on it. Self-blame. Again, this gets into a little bit with shame and embarrassment. You're unwilling, the abuse can erode your self-esteem, make you not feel good about yourself, and make it difficult for you to report the abuse. And lastly, lack of awareness. You don't know that it's happening. You know, if it's somebody you trust like a lawyer or a caregiver, you may not know that your funds are disappearing. And you need to have somebody close to you. If you're not able to manage your financial affairs, have somebody close to you who can oversee your financial affairs and oversee your contracts with lawyers and so forth. So that there's an accounting, like we manage people's money, those files are monitored every 3 months to make sure that no funds are being misused. So it's really important that you have somebody overseeing your arrangements if you're having help for your financial affairs. Mm-hmm.
There's one thing about being compromised by your accounts, your bank accounts. I had that happen about a year ago, and the bank notified me and wanted to know where I was, and I told them I was home. He says, well, I guess you're not in Louisiana. And there have been several withdrawals taken off of my account, which the bank put back in within a matter of days.
Yeah.
You just don't know. I mean, it could happen outside the country, but this was happening inside.
Yeah, and people need to go on to, if you have online banking, go on there regularly, like every week or every day, and check and make sure your funds are being spent appropriately, that you don't have illegal fees on there. I am amazed at the number of people who do not check their credit card bills each month to see where the expenses are being paid on. And many of them are being scammed, and they don't know it because they're not looking at their credit card bills each month. You need to look at every single bill that comes into your house and make sure the charges on there are legitimate. And if they're not, call the credit card company or whoever the credit belongs to. And many times they'll reimburse your account. But you have to know that it's happening in order to take that done. All right, I'm going to give you out an identity theft self-check. And if you take a few minutes to complete this. All right, if you scored 0 to 6, you're not taking enough actions to minimize your risk. If you scored 7 to 13, you have developed good practices, but there's room for improvement. And if you got 14 to 20, you're doing a good job. So that's just I thought this was an interesting thing to kind of give you a chance to look at how well you're protecting yourself and your information. And this pertains particularly to self-identity loss, having your funds taken over by somebody. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the workshop we're going to be offering in June. It's a financial literacy workshop, which is a set of skills and knowledges that allows an individual to make informed and effective decisions with all their financial resources. And there's 2 handouts that we're going to be handing out to you, and I'll go over these with you. All right, this program is called Finances 50 Plus. It was developed by Schwab and AARP Foundation. You would get a manual like this. It has everything in the manual, and this is a really nice manual. We had people do it in pencil so that you can use it over and over and over again to be looking at your budget or looking at credit or debit or whatever. It's divided into 3 sections. The dates are on the sheet that Linda's handing out now. They're in June on Tuesday morning, 10 to 12:30? 30. 10:30, or is it 10:30 or 10?
10:30 to 12:30.
10:30 to 12:30. It's a 2-hour workshop, and we're going to be going over the The 3 sections, the first one covers where you are, where you go, and how to get there. And this is going to give you a chance to look at developing a budget, looking at your net worth, completing a financial assessment, and looking how financial decisions affect your life. The second session looks at taking control of credit card debt, understanding credit and understanding debt, looking at your credit score and report and how to work with that information, credit card do's and don'ts, how to read credit statements, and navigating debt. We'll be covering all those topics. And then in the third session, we'll be looking at savings, how you can put money aside even if you're on a limited budget, and protecting your assets. We have a person from the Consumer Protection Unit of the Northwest District Attorney's Office will come and talk about scams and financial identity, self-identity, and those types of things. And that's been a very popular section for everybody who's participated in this program in the past. And she gives out a lot of valuable information. You get to ask questions, and that's a real helpful to make you aware of some of the latest scams that are going on. Is there any questions about this program? This program is one of the best programs I've seen put together, and it's really simple to understand. The information is information you can use over and over and over again, and it gives you a lot of information you may not be aware of.
Is there a fee?
No fee. It's free, and the manuals are free as well.
And it's not 3 separate workshops?
It's 3 separate workshops.
You can go to just one, or?
Ideally, you'd go to all 3.
What if you can't, you can't go to all 3, can you go to one?
Yes, you can go to one, but we prefer you to go to all 3. It's really hard if you don't go to either the first or the second one to just show up for the third one, because you'll miss a lot of the information. But if you come to 1 or 2 and pick up the third one, you would have, again, a good portion of the material. Okay, any other questions? That's all the information I have for you this afternoon. I didn't get into a lot of depth because this is a very complicated topic. There's lots of different directions you can go in. I appreciated having the time to be with you this afternoon, and if there's no other questions, I'll turn it over to Linda. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you.